did you realise when it started, this publicity, that you were in for some quite sort of heavy stuff, really? I mean, you see, you've been pushed into something which could become very, very big.
It doesn't bother me. I just take it as it comes. I don't think about how big it's going to be. I don't have any aspirations in that sense. It doesn't really bother me, you know, that the people are building it up in one way or another. If I see that it's getting too out of hand or they're not being realistic, then I can say things that I see certain things clearly. But I tend not to think about what might happen. I'm only thinking about what is actually happening and what I'm actually doing, you know.
When I interviewed Elvis Costello in 1977, he was a relatively obscure singer-songwriter with 3 failed singles behind him, making his first ever appearance on television. Not quite punk or pop or country or blues, he was already an original, and today with stacks of singles and LPs to his name and millions of records sold, he has a formidable reputation, partly because he is so hard to categorize. I caught up with Elvis at the recording studios in West London, where his first successful single, Watching the Detectives, was mixed, and which he played on that original program 12 years ago.
Nice girls, that one with a defect, cellophane shrink wrap so correct. Red dogs under illegal legs. She looks so good that he gets down and begs. She is watching the detectives. Ooh, he's so cute. Watching the detectives when they shoot.
I'm more interested in being a person than a celebrity. And that's why I tend to kind of talk about being a person more than kind of, I'm not interested in being a star. You know, I'm not interested in being a cardboard cutout kind of character, which you know, the Rod Stewarts of the world. They may be human beings in their own houses, but in terms of the general public, they've got a set, very, very one-dimensional image of those people.
Well, you've come a long way, boyo, since for 13 years, have you not? And one of the things I'm going to pick you up about is that last quotation, which is that you were preferring to be a person than a celebrity. You are now a celebrity. How have you guarded that little person, so to speak?
I don't really think I am a celebrity. Maybe if you look at a bunch of clippings, if you do any sort of work in a public place, which you do in music, inevitably you end up with a big stack of opinions about you, and they portray you in certain ways. But I've almost gone out of my way over the particularly the last sort of 5 years, to try and dismantle some of the effect of this quite potent image that I had early on, that represented certain things to people, and I try to keep reinforcing that there is a person behind it. And as much as you might fall prey to it in your private life, you fall prey to vanities and flattery, that I certainly did just a matter of weeks beyond that interview. I was kind of shocked by the naivety of the person, even though the opinions were very definite. In work, I've tried always to, you know, undermine the previous preconception and try and keep saying there's a person here, and try and be a human being and not act like a cardboard cutout. Now, though I'm more relaxed about it, I was uncertain and nervous, perhaps, so that it seemed like I had everything exactly worked out and really knew nothing. I don't really feel I've changed from that position all that much. No,
but you say that you sort of prey to the celebrity status, right, in your private life. What do you mean by that?
Well, I thought I sort of expected to be embarrassed by a lot of the opinions expressed in the interview, and actually I feel the same way about many of the things. A few of the more sort of fashionable influences of the time were in some of the things I said, but I was really shocked how young I was, because I really had no real experience of life. I'd been pretty much living on the outskirts of town and just writing songs and living my own world and go to work, and then suddenly I had this little bit of notoriety, mainly based around this sort of outrageous name and sort of unlikely looking image for a pop singer or a rock and roll singer. And then we went over to America, like only a couple of weeks after that. And,
did you know it existed?
No, not really. And I went over there and sort of, you know, almost immediately sort of started to disrupt my life. You know, I just kind of completely not swept away by it, but I got distracted from just this single-minded purpose. I would say even 6 months after that, I was probably much more cynical and probably knowing of things that I shouldn't have known. And that's part of, you know, part of sort of growing up, I suppose. It's just unfortunate that, you know, you were sort of, some of it was on stage, you know, so because you would take your feelings onto the stage with you, and more songs that you wrote could only be from your experiences. And while I'm not very keen on the confessional aspect of music, it inevitably creeps into what you say.
You're not very keen on, in fact, talking about your private life in a way, but it must have had an effect on your private life, mustn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, just disrupting sort of, you know, upheaval and going to places. And at first it's very exciting. I mean, it's a little bit like joining the army or something. Particularly in those days, we worked at a very, very furious pace. And the first, from the time of that interview, I would say I probably didn't take a holiday for the next 3.5, 4 years. And we were on the road or making records or doing something nearly all of the time.
But that takes a toll on your private life.
Yeah, but also you, at the time it seems like kind of a big adventure, and you go into like strange and exotic places and licensed to be horrible to people in a kind of childish way, which is kind of satisfying, particularly when they've got a misapprehension of you from, say, they've read your first interview. I did like that interview with you, and then I did like 5 newspaper interviews, and then I realized, particularly from the newspaper interviews, there was very little point in trying to express myself. I was never given the same opportunity as I was on that on your show to say personal things. They came along and wanted me to play a role, and in the end I just decided that if I leave the room it won't really make any difference. They'll still print the same story.
Whatever it is.
So I didn't do any, and really it was quite convenient because I didn't really have the time to be fussed arguing with people about, you know, some wrong-headed idea they had. I was too busy making the records and going on touring, and inevitably a lot of other stuff happened, you know. When you're traveling around, you meet people and things happen to you, and it changes the way you see things. But at the back of it, certain principles about your work and about your personal feelings remain the same, you know. Even if you try on some, you know, fancy clothes for a while, or you keep company with certain people, it needn't change you. In a way, the experience of doing it reinforces, you know, what you value in the long run.
Do you think it's changed you now that you've got a lot of money?
Well, I haven't really got a lot of money. That's the thing. I've had a lot of money pass through my hands over the years, but I've always used it to carry on. I've never really been very happy just amassing it. Obviously, I'm not as my circumstances are more secure than they were when I did that interview 13 years ago. But I could have been a lot richer if I'd been more unscrupulous or more or sort of like more cautious. I've tended to spend it in order to experiment with things, some of which have been foolhardy, some of which have been kind of very good fun and have been rewarding, you know. But I haven't really sort of stashed it away somewhere in offshore companies, and I did a lot of unwise things, you know, and just also the life I was leading was kind of expensive.
What, drinking?
Yeah.
Gallivanting?
Yeah, all of that stuff is expensive because, you know, if you stay at home and just watch the television, you don't spend so much money, you know. But, you know, and it takes a toll. But I think all that confessional stuff about, oh, you know, the hard life I live, well, it's, you know, I've seen sort of actors and musicians sort of bemoaning their fate, but it isn't as hard as going down a mine.
No.
None of it's that hard. Sometimes when you're on the road, the relentless boredom of going from place to place, it makes you seem like this is unnatural. Nobody could understand the monotony and the unfair demand on your energies that are made because you sort of sit around all day and suddenly you've got to be the life and soul of the party for 2 hours.
One of the things in the Financial Times, which I will quote you, May
What a curious
1989.
paper to write
I know,
about.
brilliant, isn't it? There is often something incongruous about the rich rebel lashing the establishment from the perspective of the penthouse flat. But Costello, perhaps because he still looks like an outsider, sounds as if he means it when he sings about tramping on the PM's grave. Now then...
Well, I mean, that's just, you know, that is a very convenient kind of piece of middle-class shorthand, you know, that another critic referred to me as the darling of the chattering classes. You know, that's the convenient sort of, you know, Norman Tebbit speak that these people think in. That you're not allowed to have real feelings about anything. It must be for some gain. Particularly in the Times and the Financial Times and the Sunday Times, given their particular political persuasion. How much it filters down through the paper, I don't know, but I do get this distinct feeling that they find it incomprehensible that anybody would have genuine feelings rather than affected, cynical political beliefs or just, you know, emotional responses to events. They find it intolerable because their own lives are so spiritually empty that they can't tolerate the fact that somebody would get actually genuinely angry about something and just express it in something as simple as a song. And it really won't achieve anything more than getting it out of my head, you know.
You know, about some time ago, you seem to have a very low patch in your career, or a low patch perhaps personally. I've been staring at you through the years, you know, off and on, you know what I mean? One of the things that you said then was that you would rather die young than dwindle and repeat yourself and become a dim reflection of what you were.
Well, I mean, you'd get different opinions on that if you did a canvas of people even at the show. Even people that come and pay money to come and see you play, some of them still think that you probably have become a dwindling, dim reflection, or you know.
But
because
you don't feel you have.
Well, I've tried to, you know, once I decided that I wasn't in it for a career, I don't know, career's not the right word, but it was just going to go on longer than 5 minutes. I had no idea when I did the first interview whether I was going to still be a professional musician by the end of the year. Now, things blew right out of proportion immediately after that. I had no way of knowing that was going to happen then. So I had no way of relating what might have been a rather, you know, naive, romantic comment to my own life. I had no idea that I would be perhaps on the verge of fulfilling that prophecy within 4 years.
Of course not.
Through my own idiocy. And having, you know, without wanting to be morbid or self-pitying, having had the sense to see the futility of that, you know, I realized that there were things that excited me for all, you know, for all of the things in life that irritate you and make you want to give up breathing some days. There were enough things to interest me in music that I wanted to. I hope this plane doesn't crash because I want to do that. You know?
But you also said that you could not bear to live a day or two without having got a new idea for a song. So, and I assume you're quite obsessional about your work.
Yeah, but perhaps I think that was I was kind of slightly exaggerating. I think because that was part of you know, that was one of the sort of bits of facade that I was starting to erect. They got more profound. And in the end, more constrictive. You know, they became like armor because they were for defense. And later on, I kind of discarded them quite kind of like, you know, radically. And I think you just do those things because I take it very seriously. You know, I take what I do very seriously, but it doesn't mean that you have to be boring with it. You know, if you take it seriously because you do it well and you try to do it your best you possibly can. But I don't think it has to be obsessive in a kind of psychopathic way, you know.
I was wondering whether, in fact, that when you put on your the dedication on your new album was to my darling monster Cot, who was your second wife, and a singer and a musician herself, for her love and almost endless patience. Now then, almost endless patience over what?
Oh,
Mr.
well, I
Costello.
think,
Is that to do with work or to do with
no, I think
your
it's,
lifestyle?
no, I think a bit of both, really, because Cot's, you know, helps me. She's written some songs with me and things like that that are a practical help where you just talk about ideas, share ideas together, but also from the point of view of putting up with somebody being, you know, sometimes a terrible pain in the ass and being, you know, neurotic and vain and stupid and not being able to see the wood for the trees when you're so absorbed with something which, after all, is only a bunch of songs. Now, you have to feel really as strongly as you possibly can about the individual thing at the moment, but when you worry during the process, it can get pretty nauseating for people around you. You become fascinated by detail, like on this board. You know, you might become fascinated by the winking of this particular thing here, and you might go, oh, I want that switch to be green. I mean, there are people like that really get like that, and once you lose your sense of perspective, which you do, and I think in the process of work sometimes, you know, just like in every form of work that you do, it's just sort of cut off from an ordinary society. So it seems even more eccentric and unacceptable if people, you know. So you have to have almost endless patience to put up with somebody making one of these records. You know.
I wonder what you're going to be like 13 years from now.
30 years from now.
13 years
13
from now.
years.
Another 13 years on. You'll be a little bit older.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit older than I was the last time. I've no idea. You know, I never thought to the end of the year then. And I don't see any reason to do it now. I know that I've got work. The only difference between now and then is that I know I have work that takes me to September. Last time we talked, I think I knew I had work that took me, I think that interview might have been around, my guess, it was probably around September. I've no idea what month it was, because I think I just turned 23, and I then went to America the first time in the November, and you know, all I knew was that we were doing that tour, and beyond that, it was a mystery, because I'd had 3 failed singles out by then, and Watching the Detectives was coming out, and as it happened, that was the one that made the breakthrough over here, and when I went to America, there was a whole audience there that I hadn't anticipated finding.
But while you could live with that failure at the time, but waiting for it perhaps to be successful, now you've reached success. Is it more dangerous the next 13 years for you, do you think, than less?
Well, it really depends on whether you've got any problem with the idea of, you know, I mean, to some people, if you speak to some 21-year-old or something, or 17-year-old, the idea of a 35-year-old pop singer is unacceptable to them. I'm already at least 10 years past my sell-by date, right. You know. To other people, they accept that you can be grown up. I don't think, I try not to do things which are undignified, that don't become my age, but I don't know what this age is supposed to act like, because I don't feel that different than I do. I look a little different, and I, you know, obviously I know a lot more things from my own personal experience, but they're not. I'm not necessarily any wiser now. I could be just as much of a fool now as I was then, and just as much smart about other things that I do know, you know, really, and things that I really have strong conviction about. But I've no reason to assume why I can't continue to work. It may move, you know, in all different directions. I've already kind of exhausted such a lot of possibilities for combinations of music that I'm interested in and I really genuinely love, and sometimes you fall on your face doing that because you follow your love past your ability. You know?
Well, you're going to sing for us a song called God's Comic. Could you tell me what it's about? But I will have a stab at what I think it's about. Is it about somebody scared of facing death because they may be insignificant when they arrive there? Or is it about God reviewing his pretty ordinary work?
I think I wrote it in, it sounds strange to say, but I wrote it in Greenland. We went on a holiday. It's one of the things I do that I didn't do 13 years ago, is take holidays occasionally. I went to Greenland on a boat, and up there it's very, I got the real, you know, strong feeling that the way they tell children that Santa Claus is at the North Pole, well, maybe this is where God's hiding out, because it certainly seems a lot less spoiled, with the exception of some of the towns, than in my previous experience of traveling the world. And all these crazy ideas came into my mind about God sitting up there and reviewing our efforts, improving on creation. Yeah. And among them is this horrible drunken comedian who staggers in for judgment, and he's worried because he has portrayed God's comic, who's a, you know, the old, you know, drunk comedian act that they used to have that survived from musical into my childhood on television. Only I made him a priest because I thought that was even sleazier, a drunken priest comedian, you know, rather than the usual guy with the cigarette and the top hat, you know, and that was it really. I mean, he's reviewing creation and saying, well, you know, I think I'll go and hide now, and let's see how well you get on with your airport novelettes and your waterbeds and your Andrew Lloyd Webber records, and let's see how much it protects you from your own sense of mortality.
Well, you go and sing, and I'm going to watch it on the big screen here, and I'm going to say it's very, very nice having caught up with you, Elvis Costello.
Thank you very much.
I wish you'd known me when I was alive. I was a funny fella. The crowd would hoot and holler for more. I wore a drunk's red nose for applause. Oh yes, I was a comical priest with a joke for the flock and a hand up your fleece. Drooling the drink and the lipstick and grease paint down the cardboard front of my dirty dog collar. Now I'm dead, now I'm dead, now I'm dead, now I'm dead, and I'm going on to meet my reward. I was scared, I was scared, I was scared, I was scared. He might have never heard God comic. So there he was on a waterbed, drinking a cola of a mystery brand, reading an airport novelette, listening to Andrew Lloyd Webber's Requiem. He said before it had really begun, I prefer the one about my son. I've been wading through all of this unbelievable junk and wondering if I should have given the world to the monkeys. Now I'm dead, now I'm dead, now I'm dead, now I'm dead, and I'm going on to meet my reward. I was scared, I was scared, I was scared, I was scared. He might have never heard God's comic. I'm gonna take a little trip down paradises and the shores. They say that travel broadens the mind till you can't get your head out of doors. I'm sitting here on the top of the world. I hang around in the darkest night until each beast has gone to bed. And then I say, God bless, and put out the light. While you lie in the dark, afraid to breathe, and you beg and you promise, and you bargain and you plead. Sometimes you confuse me with Santa Claus. It's the big white beard, I suppose. I'm going up to the pole where you folks die of cold. I might be gone for a while if you need me. Now I'm dead, now I'm dead, now I'm dead, now I'm dead. And you're all going on to meet your reward. Are you scared? Are you scared? Are you scared? Are you scared? You might have never heard God's comic.
A lot of people tell you all the things they did when they were 14 and all the bands they've been in ever since they learned to play the guitar. Well, we choose to not talk about those things, so I think they're very dull. The thing that's interesting is right now and the future. In the past, even last week, there's no point talking about it because it's gone. You're not going to change.